So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 2, entitled Hiranyakashipu, King of the Demons, Text 37. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Yamuvacha. Aho Amisham Vayasadikanam Vipashyatam Lokavidhim Vimoha Yatra Gatas Tatra Gatam Manushyam Swayam Sadharma Pisochantia Partam Shri Yamuvacha Aho Amisham Vayasadikanam Vipashyatam Lokavidhim Vimoha Yatra Gatas Tatra Gatam Manushyam Swayam Sadharma Pishochantia Partam. Devotees. Shriyama Uvacha Aho Vayasadikanam Vitas Ladies. Shri Yamuvacha. Shri Yamaraj said, Aho, alas, Amisham, of these, Vyasa, by age, Adikanam, of those advanced, Vipashyatam, seeing every day, Loka Vidhim, the law of nature, that everyone dies, Vimoha, the bewilderment, Yatra, from where, Agataha, came, Tatra, there, Gatam, returned, Manushyam, the man, Swayam, themselves, Sadharmaha, similar in nature, prone to die, Api, although, Shochanti, they lament, Apartam, uselessly. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Ki Jai. Sri Yamaraj said, Alas, how amazing it is! These persons who are older than me have full experience that hundreds and thousands of living entities have taken birth and died. Thus they should understand that they are also apt to die. Yet still they are bewildered. The conditioned soul comes from an unknown place and returns after death to that same unknown place. There is no exception to this rule, which is conducted by material nature. Knowing this, why did they uselessly lament? Please repeat. Sri Yamaraj said, Alas, how amazing it is! These persons who are older than me have full experience that hundreds and thousands of living entities have taken birth and died. Thus they should understand that they are also apt to die. Yet still they are bewildered. The conditioned soul comes from an unknown place and returns after death to that same unknown place. There is no exception to this rule, which is conducted by material nature. Knowing this, why do they uselessly lament? Purport. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 2:28, Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktanidhananyeva tatrakar paridevana. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? Accepting that there are two classes of philosophers, one believing in the existence of the soul and the other not believing in its existence, there is no cause for lamentation in either case. Non-believers in the existence of the soul are called atheists by followers of Vedic wisdom. Yet even if for argument's sake we accept the atheistic theory, there is still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of the soul, the material elements remain unmanifested before creation. From this subtle state of unmanifestation comes manifestation, just as from ether air is generated, from air fire is generated, from fire water is generated, and from water earth becomes manifested. From the earth many varieties of manifestations take place. For example, a big skyscraper is manifested from the earth. When it is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. The law of conservation of energy remains. But in the course of time, things are manifested and unmanifested. That is the difference. Then what cause is there for lamentation in either manifestation or unmanifestation? Somehow or other, even in the unmanifested stage, things are not lost. Both at the beginning and at the end, all elements remain unmanifested, and this does not make any real material difference. If we accept the Vedic conclusion, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Antavanta ime deha, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, nitya sokta sharirana, but that the soul is eternal, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of a dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king. But when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky nor seated on the chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self-realization on the basis of the non-existence of the material body. Therefore, in either case, whether one believes in the existence of the soul or one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation for loss of the body. In the Mahabharata, it is said, Adarshanad ihayata punas chadarshanam gataha. This statement could support the theory of the atheistic scientist that the child in the womb of the mother has no life, but is simply a lump of matter. To follow this theory, if the lump of matter is aborted by a surgical operation, no life is killed. The body of a child is like a tumor, and if a tumor is operated upon and thrown away, no sin is involved. The same argument could be put forward in regard to the king and his queens. The body of the king was manifested from an unmanifested source, and again it became unmanifested from manifestation. Since the manifestation exists only in the middle, between the 2 points of unmanifestation, why should one cry for the body manifested in the interim? Om Jnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So I would like to first ask the blessings of all the devotees present. There are many devotees here who are much senior to me. So in the same way that the elderly family members become very happy when they see a small child starting to speak its first words, I hope that you'll take pleasure in my trying to say something here today. With your blessings, please let me continue. So I thought we could begin by looking a little at the Sanskrit in the shloka because there are some interesting words. The first is loka vidhim. So loka, we know this word because we have Sarva Loka Gata, we have Krishna Loka. So loka means the planet or the place. And then vidhim means the laws, right? The rules. Like we have Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi comes from vidhi. So in Vaidhi Bhakti we follow the rules and regulations. So loka vidhim means the rules or the laws of this place. In other words, the laws of the land, right? So what is the law of the land that's being spoken about here? That everyone has to die. This is the law of the land. In this place where we live, everyone has to die. Therefore, this place is called Martya Loka, or the place of death. So we shouldn't have any illusions about our situation here. We're living in the place of death, and we're all going to die. That's just a given. Another interesting word or pair of words is we have vipashyatam. So pashyati, or pashyatam, means seeing. It's used very often throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Pashyati means see, but then V is a prefix which amplifies whatever comes after it. So like we have karma, means those activities which keep you in the cycle of birth and death, and then there's V karma, which means sinful activities which get you really extremely entangled in the cycle of birth and death. Right? And then there's Gyan, which is knowledge, but then there's Vigyan, which is realization or the application of that knowledge, which is much better than just Gyan. So good or bad, V is an amplifier. So here we have vipashyatam. So not only do they see, but it's vipashyatam. They see it every single day. we see people dying, living entities dying. And then the other word that starts with V is Vimoha. So moha we know means bewilderment or illusion, right? Like we have Madan Mohan, means the bewilderer of Cupid, name for Krishna. So here we have Vimoha. Not only they are bewildered, but they're extremely bewildered. So it occurred to me that this repetition of the prefix V emphasizes the irony of the fact that although we see living entities around us dying every day, still we are bewildered. It's an irony, right? We see it every day, but still every time it happens, we become bewildered. So, and we lament. So then we have this other word which is very common, shochanti, which means lament. And then shochantya partam, which means we will lament uselessly, because what's the use of it? And that's what Srila Prabhupada is explaining throughout this purport. In the purport, he refers to Bhagavad Gita 2.28, which comes in that section of verses that goes from 2.11 to 2.30, where Krishna speaks in a lot of detail, very elaborately about the soul, how it's eternal, how Arjuna, and it starts with Ashochanam Vashoshan Tvam, that you are lamenting that which is not worthy of grief. A wise man laments neither for the living or the dead. Then he goes on to describe how the soul is eternal, indestructible, can't be moistened by water, withered by wind, cut to pieces by any weapon, right, like that. So, and he explains from the theistic and the atheistic point of view. That's Prabhupada's emphasizing that from the theistic point of view, if you believe in God and you believe in the soul, then when you kill the body, you don't kill anything really, because the body anyways is temporary, its material doesn't matter. The real person is the soul. So when you kill the body, you don't kill the person. So go ahead and, Arjuna, kill the Kauravas. But from the atheistic point of view, the same thing. That if you don't believe in God, and if you don't believe in the soul, if you think that we are just material bodies, lumps of matter, combinations of chemicals, then it also doesn't matter. There's nothing to lament, because who laments the loss of chemicals, right? Don't cry over spilled milk, as they say. So in any case, there's no reason to lament, because matter is not lost, energy is not lost. Prabhupada refers to the law of conservation of energy here. So, but then an interesting point that he brings up at the end is he says that the atheist could use this philosophy to justify abortion. Because throughout Bhagavad Gita, and here also, this argument is used to justify the killing of demoniac people. So you could use the same arguments to kill innocent people, right? Or let's say presumably innocent people. And I thought it was interesting because Srila Prabhupada brings up the controversy, but he doesn't resolve it. Now, usually when Prabhupada brings up an alternative point of view, like often he says, Mayavadis argue that, and then there's a but, and then he gives the correct understanding. Right? That's very frequent. If you just do a Veda-based search, Mayavadis argue or Mayavadis say, Prabhupada will give the Mayavadi point of view, but he will then refute it and completely defeat it. So here he brings up that people could use this argument to support abortion, but he doesn't defeat it here. So then I was thinking, well, why doesn't Prabhupada defeat it? Why does he just leave it hanging? And then I thought that the reason he does this is because he doesn't want to get into a whole thing about abortion here, but he's pointing out how scripture can be misused to justify sinful activity. It's actually very easy to do. If we just look at the logic of the situation, so let's look at the context that we're in here. That Hiranyaksha has just been killed by Lord Varaha, and then Hiranyakashipu, citing Vedic evidence from the Puranas, is saying there's no need to lament his death. Then he's citing a story. The story he cites is King Suryagya of Ushinara, who's killed by his enemies in battle. And then here Yamaraj comes in the form of a small boy. Yamaraj is one of the 12 Mahajanas, so he's an authority. We can accept what he says. And he's also saying there's no need to lament. Then Srila Prabhupada is making reference to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And Arjuna, just at the thought of killing his family members, he doesn't want to do it. But Krishna, who's the Supreme Personality of God, is saying, go ahead and do it. There's no reason to lament their deaths. So we have three very authoritative sources of information that are saying that there's no reason to lament. So then the unborn child is killed within the womb of the mother by abortion, and people say there's no reason to lament the death, right? So it makes sense, right? Hiranyakashipu is citing Vedic evidence, Yamaraj 12 Mahajana is saying it, Supreme Personality of God is saying it, so why doesn't it apply in all cases? It should apply all across the board, right? Krishna said it. So then, yeah, and you could extend it that not only why is abortion not lamentable, but we shouldn't lament any death, right? We shouldn't lament any murder or terrorism or anything. It's all fine. It's all justified but by these authorities from Shastra. So we can see how easy it is to take isolated statements from the scriptures and use them to justify sinful activity, as Prabhupada is giving an example of here with abortion. There are many examples. There are many ways that maybe you've even done this before, or at least the thought has crossed your mind, knowing something from Shastra and thinking, hey, that kind of justifies what I want to do. For example, in the 4th canto, we have the story, the allegorical story of Paranjana, and there, in one purport, Srila Prabhupada says, generally, a man's tendency is to enjoy many women, right? So let's say there's a man, and he does have that tendency to enjoy many women. After all, Prabhupada's saying it's a normal tendency. It's a man's nature that he wants to enjoy sexual relationships with many women. So he says, okay, I'm normal. Then he opens up the Bhagavad Gita, 333, where it says, even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he's acquired from the 3 modes. What can repression accomplish? So this is my nature. Krishna is saying, even a man of knowledge has to act according to his nature, and that we shouldn't repress ourselves. So that completely justifies him enjoying with many women, which is his nature, according to Prabhupada's purport. Then, so he thinks, okay, let me go and do it. So then he goes, sows his wild oats in the field, and the next day, he gets a knock on the door. There's a very upset father. He says, what have you done to my daughter? Right? Because he finds out that this happened. And the daughter's in tears, whatever. She was in a moment of emotion. And then the man says, well, I haven't done anything because I'm not the doer. It's all being carried out by the modes of material nature. And I mean, don't you know Bhagavad Gita, sir? Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. I would be a fool. I would be acting on the platform of complete false ego if I would, you know, even propose that I did that. So then he didn't do anything. And even, not only that, but not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Supreme Lord. So that means that if it happened, then Krishna must have wanted it to happen, right? So who am I to interfere with Krishna's plan? I mean, I'm just an insignificant jiva here, acting according to my own nature as Krishna advises in Bhagavad Gita. So then later, the girl finds out that she's pregnant. She approaches the man, says, look, you've got to take responsibility now. This has become serious. And then he advises, he says, come on, why do you have to make it so complicated? Just get an abortion. I mean, after all, najayate mriyate vakadachin nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuva ajonitya shashvatoyam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul, there's neither birth nor death. You know, you're just going to kill the body. The soul's going to go on. You're not hurting anyone. So these are all different ways that we can misuse the Shastra to justify sinful activity. There are many ways. But Prabhupada's emphasizing here, or at least he's pointing out, that there are many ways that our minds, our materialistic minds, can twist and distort the Shastra for our own purposes. And that's why, although we should read the scriptures, we should certainly read the scriptures, but we should read them as a whole, in context. We shouldn't take quotes out of context. And we should also study not only the scriptures, but we shouldn't study the scriptures alone, but we should hear them from qualified devotees. And we should discuss them with sadhus. And we should inquire submissively from guru whenever there are any doubts. So that's why Prabhupada has given us this line of Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. Because if it's only Shastra, then we can misinterpret it. If it's only Guru, we may be misled because everybody's fallible. If it's only Sadhus, then we won't have a clear line of direction because many different sadhus, each sadhu tells us a different thing, we don't know what to do. So therefore, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. That we study the Shastras properly in context. That's why courses like Bhakti Shastri are very important and very valuable, because we study the Shastra from beginning to end under the guidance of a qualified teacher, and then we're not able to make these interpretations. And any possible interpretation that could come up usually gets addressed in the course. So things like that are very important. Because if this young man who had used all of these arguments to justify his sinful activity had understood the Shastras properly, then the situation would have been different. Because he would have understood that when Krishna says, what can repression accomplish, he's talking to Arjuna, and he's not talking about repressing, the urges of the senses. He's talking about Arjuna neglecting his duty. Because by our nature, by the modes of nature that we're in, we get a certain duty, a prescribed duty according to Varnashram, and Arjuna's duty as a Kshatriya was to fight. So he's saying, you shouldn't neglect your duty. But then if you read the next verse, it says, in relation to the urges of the senses, it says, there are principles to regulate the attachment and aversion in regard to the senses and their objects, and one should not come under the sway of such attachments and aversions, because they're stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. So if we study it properly in the right context and read all of the verses in that section, we get the proper understanding. In the same way, I'm not the doer. It doesn't mean that I don't take responsibility for my actions. It means that I'm so insignificant that I'm actually powerless to do anything, and simply by my desire, the modes of nature are carrying out things. So I shouldn't think out of false ego that I, have achieved something wonderful. I should think that, the modes of nature are doing anything, and I'm just an insignificant jiva. In the same way, he is not slain when the body is slain. That's true, but there's a big difference between Arjuna's killing on the battle of Kurukshetra and an abortion, a doctor aborting the unborn child. So we can look at that Arjuna's killing of the Kauravas was his religious duty. He was a Kshatriya. It's not the mother's duty to kill her child. Actually, it's her duty to protect and nurture the child. It's the opposite. Arjuna was specifically ordered, he was personally ordered by Krishna to fight on the battle of Kurukshetra. No mother is ordered by God to kill the child. So, Arjuna's killing on the battlefield was for the benefit of humanity, like Prabhupada gives the analogy, pulling weeds on the paddy field. But the world is not benefited by abortion. Then, also with Arjuna, it was a last resort. The Pandavas fighting at all was a last resort. They tried to make peace by every possible means, and then when Duryodhana wouldn't even give them a pinpoint of land, and he was bent on fighting, then they had to fight. So that's, of course, not the case with an abortion. There are many ways that you can prevent that happening, and there are also alternatives that you can, put the child up for adoption or keep the child and train it properly, like that. And the other thing is that on the Battle of Kurukshetra, everybody who was killed was benefited, also was elevated. Either they went to the heavenly planets, like Krishna says, Swaragam Dvaram Apavritam, that opened the doors to the heavenly planets, or they got liberated because they died in the presence of Krishna, or some like Bhishma went straight back to Godhead because he was fully Krishna conscious. But in any case, everybody who died on the Battle of Kurukshetra was elevated in some way, whereas the soul in the unborn child is not elevated, but actually he has to go back and try, enter another womb, go through the whole procedure again, and try again to take birth. He gets delayed in his progress. His progress gets delayed. And Arjuna was also elevated through that killing because he was acting in devotional service, whereas the mother is not elevated by killing the child, but actually she's very much entangled in a complicated web of sinful reactions. and suffering. So, we can see that the arguments that could be used by atheistic scientists to justify abortion don't actually apply to abortion if we look at it in a broad way. So then there's another argument that pro-abortionists use, which is, it's my body, I can do what I want with it. Right? A girl becomes pregnant, she thinks, I don't want to be pregnant, you know, I got a life. I've got my education, I've got my career, I don't want to, you know, be a mother right now. So I can make that decision because it affects my body, it affects my life. It's my decision to make. So, yeah, it's like when I was a student, there was a bumper sticker. This was back in the maybe late 80s and in America. There was a bumper sticker that was quite popular that said, "Keep your laws off my body." Because at that time there was I mean, now abortion is well established as legal, but at that time there was a whole big thing about it, whether it was going to be legalized or not. And so there was a campaign, and it was, "Keep your laws off my body." In other words, my body is under my control, don't try to control my body. So this is actually very wrong on many levels. First level is that when you do an abortion, when a woman does an abortion, she's killing another person's body, right? So the laws are not on her body, the laws are protecting the body of the child. So it's wrong on that level. Another level is, keep your laws off my body, but whose body is it? Is it actually your body? Right, we've been talking about, in this section, we're talking about how I'm not the body. So I think we've pretty much established that we're not these bodies, that we're the soul inside the body. But not only are we not the bodies, but these bodies are not ours. Right? Sometimes, like Prabhupada would say, we don't say I hand, we don't say I leg, we don't say I head, we say I have a hand, or my leg. But taking it further, it's not my hand, my leg, my head. I don't have, these things are Krishna's, right? Isha vasyam idam sarvam. That everything belongs to Krishna, even our bodies. So therefore, if you're using something which belongs to somebody else, then you have to use it according to that person's directions. Otherwise, you can get it taken away from her, or you can get in trouble. I'll give an example from my own experience. That before I became a devotee, I was doing an internship at the Smithsonian Institution. And it's a big institute, and they have many vehicles. So I had to go every day to a field site to do my research and then come back to the office. So I was using the institute's car. I'd pick up the keys at the office and give them back at the end of the day. So I was using the car like that, and I was, you know, they were happy with the way I was using the car. I was using it for the Smithsonian's purposes, and the research was successful, and I was free to use the car anytime I wanted for the research. So one time it was a Friday afternoon, and I came back late because it became complicated at the field site. And when I came back to give back the keys, the office was closed. It was all locked up. So then I had the keys. And then I woke up the next morning, Saturday morning, and I thought, wow, Saturday morning, not much to do. I've got the car keys. And I had a friend in a neighboring city. So I thought, great, I'll go visit my friend. So I got in the car, started the engine, drove to about half an hour drive to visit my friend in the city. And then, so we were hanging out, relaxing, having a good time. And then after a few hours, the phone rang. She picked it up, and she said, "It's the head of security from Smithsonian. Do you have the car?" I said, "Yeah." And then, so I was talking, he says, "Do you have the car?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Well, you can't use the car on the weekends." I said, "Oh, sorry." And then he says, "If you don't bring the car back within the next hour, we're going to report to the police a stolen vehicle." It's very serious. So I thought, okay, I'll be there. I'm on my way. So it just shows that if you're using something that belongs to somebody else, you have to use it for their purposes, and you're free to use it. You get all support to use it for their purposes, but as soon as you try to use it for your own enjoyment, then it's punishable. Then you can get yourself in an extremely complicated situation. I mean, I got out because I was only 19 and I pleaded ignorance. But the laws of nature aren't so easy to get out of. In fact, you can't get out of them unless you surrender to Krishna. But if you surrender to Krishna, then you're going to use your body in Krishna's service anyway, so it's not an issue. So, yeah. This body is a vehicle, just like the car. It's Krishna says yantra rudani mayaya, and it's Krishna's vehicle. It's Krishna's machine. We're seated on this machine, which is made of the material energy. But Krishna says, Daivi yesha gunamayi mama maya. Mama maya. This is my energy. So this body is Krishna's energy, and it should be used for Krishna's purpose. And we are not free to decide how we are going to use our bodies. You understand? That is not our prerogative. That's the prerogative of Krishna. We get the instruction of Krishna through Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And if we apply that and follow the principles of how to regulate our senses, how to properly engage our senses in Krishna's service according to his nature, then we can use these bodies and get full support from Krishna and the whole parampara, and our lives will be successful. But if we try to use them for our sense gratification, separately from Krishna's interests, then we'll be chastised for that. Just like even Sanatana Goswami, he wanted to commit suicide because he felt like this body's disgusting, you know, it's oozing with sores and itchy rashes, and it's useless. So he wanted to throw himself under the wrath cart and commit suicide. And Lord Chaitanya could understand his mind. He called him. He said, "Why do you want to destroy my property? That is not your body, that's my body, and I have plans for how I'm going to use that body to elucidate the principles of devotional service. That body has to write many books. That body has to, you know, unearth holy places in Vrindavan. That body has a lot to, I am going to achieve many aspects of my mission through that body. You cannot kill it." Right? Like that. So another point is that not only are we not the bodies, or not only are we not the bodies, but we think, okay, I'm the soul, this is me, and I'm not the body. This body is Krishna's, but I'm still me, and I'm mine, and I can desire the way I want to. But it's not only are the bodies not ours, but even our own very selves, as eternal spirit souls, we belong to Krishna, right? Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Or you can also look at Bhagavad Gita 4:35, the verse after Prabhupada says, just try to learn the truth from approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Krishna says. Then the next verse is that, having attained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never again fall into such illusion, because by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but a part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. So we are Krishna's, our bodies are Krishna's, our souls are Krishna's, everything is Krishna's, because aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha baba samam vitaha. That Krishna is the source of everything material, Krishna is the source of everything spiritual, everything emanates from him, and wise people who understand this point, that everything belongs to Krishna, both material and spiritual, that those who are wise, they surrender to him and serve him and worship him with all of their hearts. So this is the conclusion of how to live in this world, how to use this body, how to use ourselves and use everything in the service of Krishna. And if we live in that way, then in life or in death, there's nothing to lament, because everything is glorious, because everything connected to Krishna is glorious, because Krishna is glorious. So, thank you very much. Are there any questions on these points? Yes, Mataji. There was a mic? Yeah.
Thanks for making the point about the misuse of philosophy. We see it all the time, you know, smashing each other with the philosophy. We expected that. But the point I want to make is, with the progress of Kali Yuga, there's more and more mental disease, you know.
Mental disease.
Mental disturbance. It's on the rise.
Yeah.
And so some devotees, they come and they got their baggage, you know. And this philosophy is so lofty, and in the hands, in the minds of people who are not balanced, who could be a little crazy or very much crazy, it could be very dangerous. So isn't it sometimes, wouldn't it be recommended to follow some psychiatric treatment before, for some persons, you know, before they get too much into the philosophy, because it ends up being a mess, you know. What do you think?
You're saying that people are mentally disturbed, so perhaps they shouldn't go straight into studying the philosophy because they're prone to misinterpret it? Is that what you're... I didn't hear it very clearly.
Yeah,
so
maybe they should follow some kind of treatment to be a little more balanced. Huh? Maybe they should follow treatment. Some need it before they get into the philosophy and cause some havoc.
Yeah,
know?
the treatment is there, right? The
No,
medicine is there just to cure that mental problem. Like the song goes, NHA Aushadhi Maya. That the medicine is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. That's the medicine for this mental disease. Maha Mantra. That it delivers the mind from its contaminated state, the disease state. And therefore we study the scripture, but at the same time we follow the other principles of sadhana bhakti, like chanting, sadhu sangha, taking prasadam, avoiding sinful activity. And very quickly actually the mind becomes free from these things. But at the same time we need to be sincere, right? If we try, if a person is insincere and they actually want to use the scriptures to justify their activities, then they can do that, but they will suffer. But a sincere person will not be misled. Therefore, Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Devotion that the only qualification for devotional service is sincerity. Another question in the back there.
Hare Krishna. Mataji, I was just wondering, why did Lord Chaitanya lament when Haridas Thakur left his body?
Why did Lord Chaitanya lament? Well, because there are kinds of leaving the body that are lamentable and not lamentable, and others that are lamentable. So the general thing is we don't lament, but when a devotee leaves his body, then we lament. Just like there's this song by Narottam Das Thakur, where he says, I will smash my head against the stone and enter into the fire. Right? Where has such a great soul as Lord Chaitanya gone? Where are Sanatan? Where are Rupa Goswami? Right? Like that. Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? So he's going to smash his head against the stone because they've left the body. Is he lamenting? He's going to throw his body into the fire. Is he lamenting? Is he not a pure devotee? Narottam Das Thakur? Srila Prabhupada said that the songs of Narottam Das Thakur are as good as Shastra. So this is showing that when a pure devotee, or when the Lord leaves the body, and Lord Chaitanya is showing as the perfect devotee, although he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he's setting the example of the perfect devotee, that when a pure devotee leaves this world, then we should lament. We should lament that we actually become purified by those intense feelings of separation for the Vaishnava. But it's not lamenting in a material way. That's spiritual lamentation. See, there's material lamentation that you're lamenting over the body, or your bodily relationship, or the sense gratification that you got from that relationship. That is not worthy of lamentation. Then there's spiritual lamentation, where you're actually feeling the separation from the inspiring spiritual association of that great soul, right? Or the Lord. And that is good. We should lament like that. That actually makes us advance. When Krishna left Vrindavan, the gopis lamented like anything, right? He didn't even leave the world, he just left that place. So, but that's the highest form of devotional service, constant immersion in intense feelings and remembrance of Krishna. So in the same way, when we have those intense feelings for the pure devotee, then that propels us forward in spiritual life. And Lord Chaitanya showed that by his example. Govinda, pass the mic, please.
To continue with her question, like, shouldn't we be happy that they left their body because they've gone to Godhead?
Yeah, I mean, when a devotee leaves, it's always bittersweet, right? We're happy because they went back to Godhead. But we're also sad because we don't have their association anymore. So it's like that, bittersweet. Anything else? Yes, Prabhu. Pass the mic to the men's side, please.
like you were saying, that in Krishna's service, if we engage our body in Krishna's service, the body is properly engaged. If we engage it in sense gratification, then we may run into trouble. But isn't it also a fact that sometimes we engaging our body in Krishna's service, but because we're tinged with the modes, also the body may get abused. Like for example, let's say you're a Sankirtan devotee and you're looking for recognition, so you want to distribute a lot of books, but you push yourself too hard, and then you become tired, depressed, whatever. So, can you elaborate more on that? That also we have to be careful about our mentality that we have in serving Krishna, and now we can understand our mentality also, so we don't run into, we don't abuse our body in the name of devotional service.
If I understand, let me just make sure I understand you properly. That in the name of devotional service, in the name of using our bodies, we can push ourselves too far?
Yeah, like if we're in the mode of passion, we want name and fame, so we may use Sankirtan venue for that. So in order to get that name and fame, we'll push ourselves extremely hard, maybe a little too hard, and our body may become diseased, or
Right.
may become burnt out.
But if our goal is name and fame, and we're engaging in so-called devotional service, we're engaging at least in the mechanics of devotional service to get name and fame, and we're pushing ourselves for that, then is it devotional service or is it subtle sense gratification?
Well, let's say we're distributing books.
So you
Prabhupada's
could say
books.
it's mixed.
Yeah, mixed.
Right?
Yeah,
It's mixed. The motivation is not pure, but the
Yeah.
activity is still a spiritual activity. So then you're asking, is it...
My question is,
Yeah.
how can we avoid these things? How can we avoid making these bad choices, or how can we avoid being influenced by the modes, generally speaking?
Well, the body has its limitations, so we should know what our limitations are. Everybody's are different. But we should also allow for the possibility of Krishna taking us beyond those limitations. So you're giving an example where the motivation is not pure. Let's give an example where the motivation is pure. That you really want to distribute books for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna, and you're just going to go out there and save the world, make devotees like that. So your motivation is very pure. You're going to act as Krishna's instrument in fulfilling the mission of delivering the pious, right? So then, I'll give an example from my own life. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so one time, once when I was quite a young devotee, there would be I was in a temple in Scotland. I was in the brahmachari in the ashram, and there was going to be a marathon to collect Lakshmi for the installation of the deities in Hungary, in New Vrajadam. So then it would be a one-day marathon, and my spiritual master came. He informed of this marathon a few days before, so we were all, getting psyched up for it. We're going to go out and really go for it and do our best for Radha and Krishna. And the day before, I fell sick. I got a really bad flu, and I woke up on the morning of the marathon with a very high fever. I was very sick, and I was shaking. It was that bad. Pounding headache, burning fever, trembling, and I really wanted to do this marathon, but I really could not physically. So I went to my senior godbrother. I said, please tell Guru Maharaj that I would love to go out today. I really want to please him in this marathon, but I can't do it. I'm just so sick. It's just not going to happen today. Any other day, But today, the body is down for the count. So then he went and he asked, and then he came back and he said, Guru Maharaj said you can die tomorrow, but you have to go out today. I said, okay. I'm not this body. I'm going to do it. So I went out, and this was January in Scotland. If anybody knows what January in Scotland is like, it's sub-zero. It's like freezing cold, gale force winds, because it's an island. And so there I was, on the streets of Edinburgh, freezing cold, raging fever. I said, I'm just going to try, and whatever happens, happens, and I can just say that I tried. So I just started approaching people, and somehow or other, people were stopping, the books were going out, and at the end of and I kind of forgot that I was sick. You know, you can forget that you have all these problems. I mean, I think any Sankirtan devotee has experienced this, right? That when you get really into Sankirtan and for the right reasons, all your troubles go away. Your physical problems go away, your mental problems go away. It's like no problem anymore. And I distributed over 200 books that day. And I collected more Lakshmi than I ever had in my life up to that point. I beat everyone in the temple. But when I got back to the temple, I practically collapsed into my sleeping bag. But anyways, it just shows that although the body has its limitations, and although we may think, well, I don't want to abuse my body by pushing it into doing something, we're actually capable of more than we think we are, right? If we just allow Krishna to use his body in his service, right? But we're thinking, this is my body, and I've got to take care of it according to what I think, but what I think is not always what Krishna thinks. Just like when the devotees in Los Angeles were doing that Chaitanya Charitamrita marathon, and they were practically not eating, not sleeping, they were working round the clock, and Ragatmika Mataji was just working and working, and the devotees told Srila Prabhupada, she's not eating, she's not sleeping, she's only typing. And Prabhupada says she's running on spiritual energy. So the material energy is limited, but the spiritual energy is unlimited. So if we connect ourselves and we tap into that spiritual energy which is coming from Krishna, all we really need to do is connect with Krishna. And the way to connect with Krishna is by following his instructions of the spiritual master with pure motivation. But if we have an impure motivation, as your example is, then we won't be able to connect with the spiritual energy, and we're just going to harm ourselves mentally and physically.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Our time is finished, almost 9 o'clock. Yes, always. As long as we're connected, we're safe. We can do something. As soon as we disconnect ourselves from Guru and Krishna and try to do our own thing, act whimsically according to our mind and our senses' demands, then we're in trouble. And we basically can't do anything. Dysfunctional. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi.
Hari Hari Bol.